Hello, I'm Catherine McBreen, president of Millionaire Corner. We are excited today to be speaking with Mr. Walter Burns, the head of Family Steward Wealth Consulting. Mr. Burns is a former naval aviator and he attended the Naval Academy. After that, he decided that he was going to start a family business in the financial services industry, and he's been doing that ever since. And we are so excited to have him here today. Hello, Mr. Burns.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here today.
Could you tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. We formed Family Steward Wealth Consulting many years ago. The name implies what we do. So we only work with people who are family stewards. And family stewards are people who want to naturally live well, develop closer relationships within their family, and make sure their wealth empowers their children to be their very best. I think that sort of sums it up.
Okay. What do you think what are some of the biggest challenges families face today?
I think the biggest challenge that families face today, very similar to what they've always faced, uh, that is becoming clear about what's important to mom and dad and the family, what their goals are, what they want to achieve, and usually a lack of communication. Sometimes about some very touchy things. But if you don't know where you're going and what you want to do, clearly, some of those questions are very hard to answer. Then many times it can cause, obviously, the breakdown of a marriage or a lot of unhappiness and so forth. So our focus is on trying to help bring about that clarity within the family itself.
How do you help families deal with the fact that in many cases some of them have a lot of wealth and they need to explain to their children sort of the importance or the responsibility that goes with it?
Well, could I start with something before that, and then I could lead into and answer that question. Uh, uh, when we're working with someone, we do a discovery process, and we try to understand, first of all, what's important to mom and dad in extremely great detail. And it sounds a little silly sometimes, but we actually get to know the names of the dog, the family dog, and how old the dog is, and so forth. But great detail. And from this, mom and dad develop great clarity that they may not have had before about what's important to them. And then moving forward, we have a process that we go through. Um, the process, we call it the creation of a dynamic lifetime plan. The first part of that is to develop a retirement comfort plan. And as the name implies, I think it's fair to say that the biggest concern that almost everybody has, probably not Warren Buffett, but almost everybody has, is running out of money. And will their money last long enough? So that's the first step. And in this plan, it's extremely detailed, and we constantly update it, typically once a quarter, but whatever clients want, particularly when they're going to make an important decision from a financial perspective. So the first thing is the retirement comfort plan, and that never ends. And then associated with that, when they get to the point of needing to take money out of their portfolio, we associated with that, we develop a retirement income plan. So that's the first step. Then there are issues of wealth protection, trying to protect, since we live in a litigious society, trying to protect assets from unfair lawsuits and things of that nature. The charitable giving is something that's of interest to some people. And of course, wealth transfer is extremely important. And this is where we get involved with helping the parents and, as appropriate, the children and other members of the family trying to transfer the wealth effectively. We've all seen situations where people have actually been ruined by getting too much money too fast, or fortunes being depleted because the heirs were not prepared. So in this regard, we're involved with the Institute for Preparing Heirs and trying to open up those types of conversations with mom and dad, having family meetings where appropriate, and so forth. And it actually works quite well.
So, how do you help the families to have sometimes what are like, I guess, difficult conversations? What types of ways do you kind of help prepare them to talk about it or sort of get them to speak openly?
It really isn't that difficult. By preparing them, actually having a set of questions that they can discuss in advance, and sort of like a guide, dinner time conversations, and so forth. Many there, and we have some books. Preparing Heirs is one of them. that it can be quite useful for mom and dad to be able to start the process of educating their children about wealth and helping them define what's important to them. So that's how we do it, by just sort of empowering them and helping with questions and things of this nature. Sometimes we can bring in a facilitator. Most of the time, the parents don't really want that. They want to conduct this themselves for the most part.
Uh-huh. So how do you help them develop the relationship so that these kids can someday become like the person that they want them to be, or to fulfill their parents', I guess, values and goals? How do you help them teach each other the values, I guess?
I think it's fair to say that actually mom and dad's values may not necessarily be the same as the values of the children between two different generations and so forth. I think, though, that as far as the wealth is concerned, by using the protections of independent trust companies and putting provisions inside the trust that allow for the children to meet certain performance standards before they are able to receive wealth. I'll give you an example in my own situation with my son. He's a great boy. He's on his own. I'm proud of him and so forth. And I think if he received my wealth tomorrow, it probably would take away all of his incentive to be as good as he can be. And so, under my situation, when he is working and my wife and I are gone, then he will present to the trustee his income tax return, and the trustee is directed to give him 50% of whatever he made from work, not from investment, but from work that year. And so the more he makes, the more he will get from the trust. And if he chooses to not make anything, that's his call too. And so I think that's probably an effective way. And there are many different techniques that can be used for this purpose. I'm about to discuss that with him, actually, and tell him exactly what is going to happen when my wife and I are dead. Of course, we plan on being around for a long time.
But that's a great strategy. What age do you think that children are ready to start to have some of these conversations?
Oh, it's hard to say exactly, but maybe on the order of 14, 15 years old, something like that. The serious conversations.
Um, what do you think that families with wealth need to worry about the most in the next few decades?
You know, we're sort of dyed in the wool indexes. I'm speaking now from a financial perspective. And so we think that education about the financial markets can be very helpful for the parents. And I would also say that those that work with advisors usually don't want that education. It's kind of like pulling hen's teeth, but it can be done in a happy way. We've developed a high level education program that can be fun too. And to develop an investment philosophy that they actually truly believe in and they can stick with in good times and bad, and then just stay the course with their allocation unless their situation changes, and not worry about day to day events. Just keep focusing on the big picture and their retirement comfort plan that we mentioned earlier.
Um, when you're the first meeting with a client, what types of things do you discuss in that particular meeting?
In that meeting, we have a discovery meeting. And this is the one where oh my goodness, I don't remember the number of questions, but there's probably something on the order of 70 questions where we're trying to understand the folks that we're talking to see if like we're a good fit for them and if they are a good fit for us. Because it's not really getting married, but it's sort of close to it. We care a lot about our clients and we want them to be happy. And you know what the most rewarding thing is? With people when clients say to me, you know, Walter, I don't worry about money anymore. I don't worry about it, and we're happy. And if we can bring that about, well, then that's all that matters to me.
Now, some of your clients are obviously relatively wealthy. What do you recommend to families that aren't quite as wealthy but really need to do some of the same things that you are talking about, like saving for retirement? What kind of tips would you give to them?
Uh, well, I'm not sure quite what you mean by not wealthy, because that means different things to different people. I would say that if you have less than $500,000, you really don't need a financial advisor. You could go to Vanguard or someplace like that and get a decent allocation, and then make up your mind to start saving for the future and accumulate your wealth. And of course, that means sacrificing now for good times that will hopefully come later. Then after you get to maybe a million or so, then it might be worthwhile to have an advisor, someone that you can go to. And I would also say something here. I think it would be prudent to not have advisors who are charging commissions. That's one of the worst conflicts of interest, I believe, that you can have. So the advisor should be able to serve the client on a basis whereby the advisor can be terminated at any time without there being an adverse effect for the client. And by having that, we say to our clients, gosh, it sounds like a commercial, but it's not meant to be. We say to our clients, the only people that we want to have working with us are those who want to work with us. And it's really the truth. And thus, from this comes great relationships. And that's what it's all about.
Tell me any last minute thoughts that you have that you think would be important for our viewers at Millionaire Corner to think about in the next few years.
Well, the thought would be to develop an investment philosophy that you believe in, truly believe in, get the education that you need to be able to be firm in that, particularly in bad times, which we all know will come and go, and then to develop a plan for the future that both the mom and dad, for example, can stick with very openly, and they both are very clear on where they're going as a family unit and what they want to do, and then to stick with the plan and just keep plugging along and live a life of abundance.
One of the things that we see, a lot of people don't want to address the whole issue of estate planning or wealth planning simply because they don't want to address the issue of the fact that they may not be here in so many years. How do you get your clients to make sure that they're really facing those issues, and also talk a little bit about long-term health care issues, because that also becomes a difficult family conversation?
It does. Well, the process that we use, we start off by developing this retirement comfort plan and getting the money invested. And then after that's taken care of, then we say, okay, what do you want to discuss next? And here's a menu of things. So you want to talk about wealth protection. Okay, great. Well, let's work on that. And I can bring in some attorneys as appropriate. We have a whole cadre of people that we work with to talk about these issues as necessary. And the nice thing about that, too, is we don't charge anything extra for doing all that work, which saves them a lot of money, actually. So in any event, they get around to say, well, here's estate planning. Wealth transfer is still on your list. Is that the next thing you want to address? Whatever it is. And they say, yes. Okay, great. And then we just go through this process and try to find out what's important to them. Actually, with our clients, we don't have any thoughts of aversion to talking about protecting and preserving their family wealth. They want to talk about it. They realize, everybody does, that someday we're not going to be here. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be a very positive thing. All the wealth that they worked so hard to accumulate and pay all those taxes and everything left over, and to do something with that wealth, whatever they want. Okay, whether it be charitable causes or family, who knows what it will be, but to develop a custom plan so that they end up being fulfilled by creating a legacy of what they stand for.
One of the things that we find in our research is people worry the most about what would happen to them if there is a family health crisis, and the fact that you're helping them actually kind of have a plan in case something happens seems that it does make sense that they would feel better about it.
It's true. Healthcare is always an issue. I have to say, in all honesty, that I sort of hate long-term care insurance. I don't think anybody loves it. Yet I, sadly, am paying the premiums reluctantly I don't know how we do it, monthly or annually. But I can tell you that when my net worth gets up about $1 million more, that policy is history. And if you have enough money, you really don't need long-term care insurance. Where that line is, it depends, of course, on the standard of living. But, maybe $3 or $4 million, I would say that you probably don't need it.
But a lot of people have to have that discussion because they're just not quite where they need to be to protect themselves, I guess.
Absolutely. And when they need it, well, that's a different issue. And you're right, though, people, I think, are more adverse to talking about long-term care insurance, if you will, than they are about talking about estate planning.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have any other additional thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
Um, I do. One thing that might be of some value is that there is a model we've developed having to do with estate planning. It should be obvious that with respect to trust, if you're working with a corporate trustee that manages the money, there's an obvious conflict of interest. We believe that when you have a trustee, it should be an independent trustee that does trust administration only, so that everything is totally transparent. The financial advisor should be required in the trust document should dictate how the money is to be invested, and the financial advisor better darn well be doing that, or there'll be a provision to terminate the financial advisor. There should be an independent an independent custodian, like say Schwab or Fidelity, somebody like that, who actually has control of the money. The financial advisor should not be custodial. The financial advisor should have absolutely no access to the money whatsoever. And those are the major provisions I can think of right now. By having a completely open and transparent situation, we believe that the clients will be best served, and the beneficiaries of the trust will be best served.
That's good advice, because sometimes people don't really understand the different roles of the different parties. So it's important for them to kind of get a feeling about what each person does.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Burns, for taking the time to talk with us today, and hopefully we'll be hearing from you sometime in the future as well. So
thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.